Everyone is trying to keep up with AI. New tools, new platforms, new workflows. In the last 18 months, more people have adopted AI faster than they've adopted any other technology in history, and most of them still feel behind. Here's the thing. The problem isn't the tool. The problem is that the person holding the tools hasn't changed. And here's what nobody is telling you about AI. You see, it doesn't amplify your potential. It amplifies what's already there. So if what's already there is reactive, anxious, or externally organized, then that's what's getting amplified. And that right there is not an AI problem. It's an identity problem. Every conversation about AI is the same conversation that everybody's having. So let me draw this arrow here and this arrow here. So the conversation is centered around being faster, more efficient, more productivity, better workflows, better automations, everything that has to do with the external. But nobody's talking about what's really most important here. And that is, who is the person using AI, using and doing the stuff? And the gap between these two lines here is the only gap that actually determines what's going to happen next. Because it's not about the tools, the workflows, or how fast you can adopt or even adapt. Because what it's ultimately about is the identity behind the adoption. And that's what nobody is teaching. Not the tool layer, but the layer underneath, which is the identity. And I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs, founders, creators that use AI on a daily basis. And one of the things that they came to me with, and what I noticed, is that they would be using it on a daily basis to execute, to build automations, to build strategies, to build content. However, they felt that they were losing a part of themselves because they were so reliant on the machine that they had to go to the machine to ask questions and to think about different things thoroughly. However, they weren't doing that internally first and wrestling with problems. And so in this video, we're not going to go through the best tools or the best strategies. We're going to go through the identity that's behind the usage of these tools. So this is what we're going to go over today. So the first thing that I want to outline here is that this is the external change. Okay. This is what everybody is focused on right now in terms of AI. The better execution, better strategies, better performance, faster outputs, better automations, workflows, all of that. Everything is external. But what nobody is ever really talking about is the internal change of what's happening to you while you're using AI. So the first thing that we're going to go over today is the gap. This gap here between internal change and external change. And the goal here is for you to understand, yes, we want better outputs. We want better external changes and updates and productivity, but you need to understand what that's doing to you at an internal level as an identity, as an individual. And the second thing we're going to go over is the misdiagnosis. This is what most people do when the disruption arrives, and how to properly diagnose the situation. And then finally, we're going to go over the adapt system. This is the exact identity upgrade sequence for becoming the person that AI amplifies instead of the person that AI eventually replaces. Because the goal here is not to keep up with the disruption. The goal is to keep up with the identity that doesn't need to, because you're growing with the external change internally as well. So we know that AI is accelerating external change faster than any other technology in history. Information that required a lot of research and deep analysis is now instantly available. Skills that required years of practice are being compressed into weeks. Speed advantages that used to belong to teams with resources are now accessible to individuals. So here's some of the advantages of the external change with AI. So you have the info advantage. AI has it. The skill advantage. AI compresses it. The speed advantage. AI owns it. Everything that used to make you stand out because it was hard is becoming the floor. And most people's response to this is to learn more tools, to adopt faster, stay reactive. But here's the thing that AI cannot touch. So AI cannot touch thinking. You have your frameworks, your lens. And it's important that you have this and that you're thinking through problems first yourself before you're going to the machine to get feedback or analysis. Because if you're going to the machines, AI, GPT, Claude, whatever tool it may be, and you're asking for something without first doing the wrestling, mental wrestling yourself and the analysis and the assumptions, you're going to lose your thinking. So it's important for you to really hone in and focus on your own thinking and then decision making. This is your judgment under pressure that you make yourself. Your self-awareness, probably the most important here. This is your ability to see yourself clearly. And then your clarity, knowing what you actually want. Because if you start using your thinking, your decision making, and your self-awareness and clarity, and you're putting that on AI, GPT, Claude, or whatever tool, you're going to start losing this part of you. And that's how you're going to lose yourself in terms of the machines kind of connecting with humans, right? The man and the machine coming together. It's where you slowly start to lose a part of you. Your thinking, your decision making, the ability for you to wrestle with the problem first, and to you coming to your own conclusions first before asking the machine to help you and to figure it out, because you know intuitively what you need to do, what you think. And so come to AI first with that clarity. And don't ever let it take over making decisions, thinking, your own self-awareness in terms of, hey, I don't know what to do, tell me what to do. You never want to outsource any of this, okay? You want to use AI to help you supplement what you already do naturally, internally, okay? And help you become a better version of yourself. And so these 4 things here, these things cannot be automated by AI because these are functions of an individual self. Think about it this way. When you or somebody else is using AI, you're always going to get different responses. You can go in there and ask the same exact question to GPT or Claude and have somebody else ask the same question. And the same exact question, 2 different people asking AI, and they're going to get 2 completely different responses because it's going to respond and reflect back to you based off of who you already are. Because ultimately, the identity behind the individual and behind the tool is different. And so you want to use AI to enhance who you already are so that you can become a better version of yourself. Because here's what you need to understand. You don't fall behind because of AI. You fall behind because you stay the same. Okay? And here's what most people do. So I'll put over here in the corner what most people do. What most people do when disruption arrives, it looks something like this. Consume more content. Learn a better tool. Learn a new automation. Learn a new software that just came out that does A, B, and C and automates X, Y, and Z. Learn new tools. Chase the next trend. As of today, the next trend from what I'm seeing is the AI agents, and where that's super prevalent, and where a year or so from now, 2 years from now, agents are going to be just, another thing in the neighborhood, just another day in the neighborhood, right? So there's a constant chase for what's the newest thing in AI. And ultimately, they're staying reactive. And you see, all of these moves here are external. All of them operate on the same assumption that the problem is what you know and not who you are. And so people get busier. And this gap here between external change and internal change widens. Okay, this becomes a lot wider, where this is like super high level exponential growth, and this just continues flat. So next thing that I want to go over is the adapt system, so you can learn how to stay ahead of the curve and not just focus on external changes and trying to get more tools, more knowledge, more information, and try to chase trends, and how you can grow and expand and work with the external change by working with your internal change and using AI so that you can become a better version of yourself. So let's go ahead and erase the board here. Okay, so the adapt. Human change system. And this is an acronym. This is 5 steps, and this is not where I'm going to give you a strategy. Each one of these is an identity operation, because the goal is not to keep up with AI. The goal is to become the person that AI amplifies, not the person that AI eventually replaces. So the first step, A, is awareness. This is where you see how you think. Before you upgrade anything, you have to see how you actually operate and what's actually running. This is where you start having conversations with GPT and Claude, and you start asking about your blind spots, about how you process, about how you see the world. And to give you an idea from my perspective of how you can see, or how I see GPT versus Claude, GPT, I see it more as like the feminine aspect, where it's a little bit more imaginative, more colorful, more vibrant, more touchy-feely. And so that's how I want you to think about the GPT aspect, okay? Whereas the Claude is a little bit more on the masculine side, where it's more logic-based, more analytical, more detailed, more structured, and just more of a structured, no-nonsense type of approach. And so what I recommend here is that go through AI and start asking questions about, hey, through my last chats or everything that we've communicated, especially GPT, it holds pretty long memory of who you are since the very beginning. Ask it, how do I see the world? How do I process? How do I engage with myself, with others? What's my worldview? How do I structure my thinking? What are all my blind spots that are keeping me stuck? And so just get full clarity as to how you operate and what can be improved upon based off of your communication with the AI. Step number 2, this is where you want to define who you want to be. You're defining identity. And this is where you're not focused on goals. You're not focused on outcomes. You're focused on who you actually are wanting to be and to become. Because if you're looking for goals, that's just describing what you want. Identity describes the person that creates it. Most people are trying to achieve outcomes with an identity that was built for a different reality. The work is not to chase the outcome. It's to define the version of yourself that produces it naturally. And so you want to get super crystal clear here, okay? Who is this person? What time did they get up? What do they do? How much money do they make? And this is where you can have AI help you go through this process. Hey, this is who I am right now. This is how much money I'm making. This is, my current identity, how I see myself. I want to see myself or become this next version of me where I've hit this ceiling here. Okay. I want to go up here to this next new ceiling. What does this look like? What would I need to do in order to get there? Okay. What are the characteristics, the perspectives, the worldviews of this future version of me? Okay. And this is where you can use AI to help you with the vision and for being able to interact with this future version of you. Okay. This future version, you can give it characteristics, perspectives, and say, hey, this future version of me who's making X amount of money, lives here, does this, has this background, history, whatever it may be. I want you to respond to me from this future version of me and talk to me from that aspect, from that perspective, and help me build this identity so that I can access you and step into that. Okay, so AI is very powerful if you use it correctly. And one of the best ways to use it is a mirror so that it can reflect back to you. Okay? Reflect back to you. That's not the greatest image there. But so this is a mirror. Okay? And AI really is that. It's a reflection system. Yes, you can do all these great things externally in terms of automations, workflows, strategies, content, all that great stuff. However, when you can use it as a mirror to understand how you see the world and then how you want to see the world in this new identity, this future version of yourself, that game changes completely for you. Then you can start to stay and be at the head of the curve and adapt accordingly instead of trying to just use it as a tool and slowly start to lose yourself. Step number 3, you want to adjust your thinking. This is where you think better and decide better. This is where you can use AI to help you think different, think from a higher perspective. And so I always like to have this example here where have this pyramid and you have different levels. Okay. And up here, you're in 5D where you can see everything. Okay. So you want to have GPT or Claude help you see the big picture and to think differently. Hey, here's how I normally think about my life, my worldview, my perspectives, the narratives, the stories that I tell myself. This is how I naturally think. How can I think different or from a higher perspective so that I'm no longer limiting myself and reaching a ceiling, right? So all of these types of questions, when you can ask AI to help you upgrade yourself on the internal side, that's what's going to make you that much better as a user for the external stuff, right? Step number 4, P, practice. This is where I would say that you can, yes, focus on AI in terms of the external tools, automations, content, strategy. I do this myself, but I also practice internal communication in the sense of I ask questions from the lens of, hey, this is what's going on. This is my perspective and the intuition that I have based off of X, Y, and Z. Tell me from my future self, my future version of myself, how would they react or act, or what decision would they make, or how would they think about this situation that I'm going through right now? Because what this is doing, this is helping me internally become better. It helps me then start to look at the world and, everything as a whole from a higher perspective, from this 5D. and then from the future version of myself. That's where the most of the benefit is going to come as we progress into the AI evolution in space as a whole, is you being able to use AI to help you internally so that these, remember the arrows, instead of it being like this, it's like this. Both of them are parallel. Your internal change is going up at the same rate as the external change as well, okay? And then finally, T, tool integration, where you want to use AI as an amplifier. Sort of like what I mentioned here in terms of the practice, where you're using it very deliberately, intentionally for the external stuff as a tool, but then you use it as a teacher to help you learn, and then as a mirror to help you get reflections, perspectives, higher perspectives, future version perspectives, right? That's how you're going to be able to use the tool to its full potential, because there's really 3 different levels. There's the tool aspect where you're using it on the external side of things. The teacher, where you're learning new frameworks, new knowledge, new information. And then the final one is a mirror, where you're using it as a reflection system to help you become a better version of yourself so that you can grow externally and internally at the same rate. Now, I want to ask you a question. When you hear about a new AI tool or a new model that has just been released, what do you feel at first? What would it look like to stop chasing what's next and start becoming the person that doesn't have to? Because AI is not the disruption that you need to worry about. Staying the same is. The world is moving. The question is not whether you can keep up. The question is whether the version of you that shows up to the future is the version that you actually chose to build.